you guys have any thoughts to add on that?
Not my area.
Consumer, yeah, most of our focus is on the consumer side. Yeah, question different.
Hi, my name is Asaf Benjamin from Interactive. There's a lot of conversation going on with regards to the differences between free and paid, and I'd like to appreciate your opinion about it.
Sure, so
Free is good, isn't it?
free is always good, yeah. Free is better for everyone, usually. My viewpoint is, and this is what we did with, well, we have a few different apps in the store, but one of them is a food and fitness tracker, and one of them is a smoking cessation app. The food and fitness tracker, we have both a free app and a paid app. We launched our paid app first, and it's been a great revenue stream. We've done a couple million downloads. The free app, we were a little hesitant to launch because we thought it might cannibalize some of the downloads of the paid app. But we went ahead and made it advertising supported. The advertising market is healthy enough now that it can support some pretty good CPMs. And depending on your life cycle, you may be able to make more than your paid apps. But what we saw was we handicapped the app a little bit, so you can't do all the features that the paid app can do. And we launched the free app and then converted those free members up to paid, and it worked out fine. We didn't see any cannibalization. So depending on what kind of app you have, I think it's definitely, you can have both coexist and they can complement each other.
We've seen with the developers that we work with, when a developer goes free versus paid, they see about a 15 times download increase in the free app. But obviously there's going to be a lot more if you make it free. But as long as a developer, you've got mechanics in there to be able to monetize your free users, whether it's through good banner ads or virtual currency, level unlocking if you have that type of thing, or upselling to the paid app. As long as you've got a good, smooth mechanic in there for those free users to be able to give you money, we've quite often seen a big boost in revenue. So you see even more money than you would have if you just kept it as a paid download when you go free.
I was just going to say, it's very hard to market a paid app by itself unless you have very strong IP. So I think in general, what most people do is they create a free app. They have like a freemium type model where they get you engaged in the free app, and then in the middle they have kind of jammers that then sell their paid app. So that's kind of popular.
One thing I'll offer on that is sort of tying it back to the previous question about enterprise social apps. One thing I've seen is that in the enterprise space, a paid app actually has higher engagement because there's sort of this psychological barrier. If you're paid for something, you're more likely to use it because you think there's perceived value at least. And the decision maker, the person who wrote the check, has incentive to justify their decision. So there's a little bit of a proactive push from them to the rest of the employees about using it.
Yeah, I would say the one other thing on free and paid is if free users are much more forgiving for bugs. So if you want to launch free and then you can always switch to paid, that's an okay way to get a good beta test with a healthy amount of users giving you good feedback, make sure it's solid, and then flip to paid. But you'll definitely get a lot more upset users who paid for something that's broken.
One comment on that, it is difficult to go from free to paid, but if you have a paid app and you have a free trial weekend or even a free month, then those free users think they're getting a special deal, and when you go back to paid, people aren't going to complain and get upset about it.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Kiran. I had a question about web apps, whether it's delivered through the browser or wrapped to be a native app. What areas have you found those to be successful, if any, and are the distribution dynamics different from true native apps?
I am not aware of a lot of very successful non-native web-based apps on mobile right now. I know what a lot of developers have been doing is making basically a shell that a user can download and place in the native app or in the native platform that will then link out to their web functionality. So it may just be an icon and a link, but that idea of having it be planted on the device in the icon list there is critically important for getting users, particularly getting them back to the the app once they see it, and it's also a lot easier than having them open up the browser and try to navigate back to your game after they've been surfing the web for most of the day and they've gone to other links. It can be difficult to get back to your particular app if it's not native.
One thing I've seen is with games, I mean, just my personal experience, I've been playing a lot more Angry Birds on Google Plus the last couple of weeks. So it's an example of a mobile app that is now on the web and so go backwards.
I know there's some new functionality out there where one of the bookmark features on iOS, when you are on a web page, you can actually save a link to the desktop on the device.
Question? I have a question on discovery.
Go ahead.
It's a two-part question. First question is, you mentioned that search doesn't seem to be working quite well for app discovery. I want to know why. Second part is, with regards to incentivized installs, that works, I'm sure, for games, but what about apps that aren't games?
So just so I make sure I heard the question. The first one was about
Search. Yeah.
search.
Why isn't search working?
So this is just a personal opinion. I don't have data behind this, but in general, I think that when people search for apps, they're searching for a specific name for an app, or they're searching for a utility app, like a flashlight app, or like a lifestyle app, something of that nature. In general, a lot of the apps you see in the App Store are just entertainment apps. People don't exactly know exactly what they want to be entertained by, so in general, the rankings are used for that.
In terms of the non-game installs, I know Apple is okay with incentivizing a user to basically do any kind of functionality that's not installing an app and affecting the ranking systems. So Tapjoy, we still do a lot of work with people like Netflix and Gamefly, where we're actually driving user acquisition for them to their websites and to their services, and Apple's fine with that. They haven't had any issues with it.
Just offer a thought on the search question. I mean, I think if you think about what you need for search to work, I mean, you need at least three things. You need a very simple and intuitive user interface. You need metadata for the content for the search engine to discover the app. And then three, you need a good ranking function. And I think that all three of those are getting better on the smartphone, but they're not quite there yet. If you think about the metadata, for example, for an app, it's very, as Ajib said, most of the apps are, how do app developers get incentivized today? It's by making a really good cover art and then having a good first screen. But if you look at the descriptions themselves of the app, they're very poor. And there isn't a whole lot of user feedback in terms of what apps are good and not. So if you think about the search technologies that work in the web, in terms of relevance and ranking, I think those things are, the raw ingredients for those are not there in the mobile app yet. But just 2 days ago, a search engine company got funded for mobile app, Quixie. So I think it's going to happen. I think that's one of my personal hypothesis is that search is going to be pretty important even on the mobile device. And it might be voice search. It may not be, you don't have to type things, just speak into it.
And one interesting thing that we've seen is that for apps in the App Store, having a large clear icon, you actually get downloaded more often than if you've got a small, maybe cluttered icon image. We've seen developers switch out their icon and not really do any other changes, and just that switching of the icon has increased their number of downloads.
Great, there's a question back there.
Yeah, it's kind of a marketing question. Have you guys seen any use of traditional marketing to sell an app? You're talking about searching on your device, and I totally agree with what you said, but the concept of like on the Super Bowl, that's kind of a dumb idea, but has anyone seen any traditional marketing techniques used to jumpstart an app? What's your comment?
I've actually talked to a couple of developers that had ads on TV. These were pretty big IPs that were able to basically cross-promote with the TV show, directing to Facebook or directing to their apps, and there really wasn't much success in that. Doing a TV ad to particularly Facebook didn't drive anywhere near what it was probably the value.
Are you running a Super Bowl ad this year?
No, are you doing, are you?
No, I'm not. Question here.
I had a question regarding the payment methods. So do you see a connection between the conversion ratio of people who use the free application versus the paid application? So does the payment method on various platforms seem to make a difference? And also I wanted to ask the same questions about mobile versus internet conversion ratio. Do you see any trend or any conversion ratio difference that you would consider worth mentioning?
So I can talk about iPhone or iOS versus Android. So on iOS, monetization's a lot easier than Android, and the reason why is card on file is, I think it's at almost 100%. I think it is 100% if they require credit card when you sign up for an iTunes account. While on Android, you're using Google Checkout, which not everyone has. So card on file is the biggest friction point for monetization, which is why iPhone is a lot better than Android. It's probably even better than online, because online is fragmented. eBay, PayPal, there's Facebook credits, there's a bunch of different payment providers instead of just one. So in my opinion, iOS is the best in terms of that.
Internet versus mobile?
In terms of monetization in general, getting people to pay, even getting younger kids to pay, because they're playing with their parents' iPhones and their accounts are already logged in. They just hit pay.
Question there.
Yeah, just following up on the marketing question. Looking at games and assuming you've got a premium property, a good quality asset, the question I have is there any value in the publishing houses like the Chilingos of the world? I mean, we all know about the success stories, but for new titles, in terms of partnering with those guys, they take a big chunk of the revenue, but do you get a good return for that?
I oversee the publishing group at Tapjoy, so I work with quite a few developers that are looking for that, looking for small assistance in getting their apps completed and discovered. I have heard from a lot of developers, so we don't provide a large amount of funding. I know if you talk to folks like Chilingo, EA, the larger publishers, they're providing six-figure development budgets for folks. Obviously that's going to make a huge difference. You're going to be able to put out a very high quality game in doing that, but you give up a lot of equity. You usually are giving up IP in the title when you go to the larger publishers. I don't know what your opinion on this would be. I think it's probably, if you're a game developer, it's probably better to go to a publisher than to go to a VC or an angel to look, if you're looking for that same amount of funding. I think you probably get more bang for your buck from the game publisher.
I would agree to that. Yeah. Question here.
Hi, thanks for a great panel. Couple of questions. So one is around the virality on mobile apps. So there, you mentioned Game Center and others that you are trying. iOS 5 has Twitter like very deeply integrated into it. Are you guys looking at that as a potential like big acquisition channel? How effective is the Facebook integration within iOS for viral acquisition? Second is, Rajiv, you mentioned you do things like doing things on the back end and separating it out, like putting as much as you can on the back end. How do you guys do the A/B testing for mobile apps? Like, do you guys put some kind of WebKit on like on the native app where you can change without actually going through the submission process? Or what are the tricks? Like, what do you guys do?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So for the first question, in terms of Twitter can be very interesting, but there's no clean notification system. So if you tweet something, it's not directed at a single person, and there's no like notification for all of your followers. So I personally think Game Center is the way to go. iOS 5 has a new notification center, which will probably be managed through Game Center in some cases. So that could be a dominant platform. OpenFate's making a play at it as well. You may have heard that Apple is getting rid of UDIDs, which are device IDs, unique identifiers. OpenFaint's trying to create their own unique identifier and then create a social network around it. None of these work right now, but we're hoping that at some point one of them does. And Apple in general usually wins these battles on their own platform. So we're leaning towards Game Center. And if you look at the top apps, top grossing apps, most of them have Game Center integration. Apple, if you want to develop a better relationship with Apple, you will do it, and you'll have a better chance of being featured or whatnot through them.
Apple has never featured an app that, from a developer, they're not happy with.
So question at the back.
Yeah, I want to talk about the future of privacy, because apps and games traditionally were commodities you sold. You didn't really make money off the data end, right? But you mentioned Flurry, and a lot of people are using data to extract revenue. And you see Apple involved in class action lawsuit regarding UDIDs, Flurry is a co-defendant, Barton and Markey introduced an amendment to COPA. So in this mobile app space, like, what do you see as the future of privacy? Because, you know, if Apple moves towards more like what's going on in Android, where you use an amalgamation of different data points to create something like a UDID proxy, then you're gathering a lot of data. And a lot of developers are gathering more data than they need to, because this idea that they might be able to monetize it in the future, but it's a risk. Like, I know Playdom was fined by the FTC a few months ago. There was Broken Thumbs, that was the first mobile apps developer that was fined last week, and they entered into a 20-year settlement agreement with the FTC, so it's something the government's definitely watching. So just wanted your thoughts.
Don't store any personal data. Just let Facebook do it and then give them permission to give it to you.
Yeah, I think that privacy issue is probably a big reason why Apple's looking to depreciate the UDID. I know we're looking to move over to the MAC address for the devices and move away from that. I don't see Apple depreciating it anytime soon. I think it's going to be kind of a slow process. If they were to just yank that out of the ecosystem, I think a tremendous number of apps would break, and a lot of developers would freak out, because it is something that's going to take a little time to adjust.
What Dan said has, I mean, besides the joke in there, but I think there is some truth to it. I think if you ask users explicitly for permission, people are actually more willing than not to give it to you. And it's amazing how far the balance of privacy has shifted in terms of people's just willingness to be very open. Facebook sort of improved that. How are we doing in time? Are we just maybe a couple more questions and we'll wrap it up? Yeah, Jay.
So just to steal a line from a jingle, do we really need more? You know, there are so many apps out there. Where do you see the gaps and opportunities? And being a VC, you know, what are the areas that you are looking to invest in?
All right. So the question is, do we need any more apps? So let me turn it around to you guys and say, how many of you think that you're done with all the apps on your phone? Like, you will never install a single additional app on your phone. So I think there's the answer. So the good news for investors is that there are users out there who want more apps, and you're not, even though there are 500,000 apps in the App Store combined, I don't think any one of us would claim that we are happy. There is an app for every occasion, as you said, but that's the beauty of it. There are many more occasions that we can all invent, whether it's for fun or work, for healthcare. One of the big areas of app development that I've seen lately is healthcare. Whether it's, we have a company called Hippocrates, which went public earlier this year. It's a very simple app. It's an app for physicians. When you add the bedside application, you have information about the patient, you have information about potential diagnosis of what's going on. If you think about electronic medical records, I mean, that whole area of development of getting physicians access to information about their patient, and also creating a physician network. If you think about the founder of Hippocrates started a new company called Doximity, which is essentially sort of a coarse way of Facebook for doctors, physicians. But it's done in a way that allows you, the patient, to talk to all of your physicians who provide you, whether it's your general practitioner, the nutritionist, the pediatrician, all of these people that collectively take care of you. How do they talk to each other about you? It must be a secure, safe way of doing that. So that's many opportunities in that area, the intersection of healthcare and IT. And there's a stat that I just recently found from an entrepreneur. He said 40% of the doctors in the US have an iPad. Think about it, 40%. So they're just, they enter the room and have a very powerful device in their hand. So imagine the innovation in that area. So I think that there is a great opportunity for all kinds of apps. We haven't even talked about TV. We sort of briefly started the panel by saying we'll talk about TV. We never got to it. Shalini left the room, but Shalini has probably the most knowledge about it as a product manager for Google TV in her past life. If you think about it, I think Dan said it's the TV was the first screen and it's to start, and now it's sort of the last screen in terms of opening it up. What is the future of apps on television? So I think that it's a golden era. We have just begun to scratch the surface. The kind of things that we're looking for, I think it is a very early, and I think that the app discovery process sort of reminds me of the Yahoo versus Google debate, right? I mean, so you have the directory structure, you have a curated app store. Clearly that is unsustainable over time. And so how do you break out of that? How does the app system get developed so that you can have a search-based interface for finding the best apps? And I think that voice has a huge role to play when it comes to phone. Most of the experience so far has been data-based, but I think as voice starts to play with voice and location and data, I think have a powerful mix. So we're looking for, frankly, platform companies. And one of my partner has this, it's a great quote. He says, look, every platform needs a killer app to begin with. If you think about any platform, whether it's Facebook or Google or Amazon or eBay, they all started off with one very simple thing. And so I think that many of the companies that we see today, whether it's a game company, whether it's a search company, whether it's an advertising company, most of those are in their phase one of trying to prove that killer app. And then once you prove that killer app, you get the chance to develop a platform out of it. So I think that's sort of our number one criteria, which is can this go beyond the first killer app phase? And then the second thing which we look for in all deals is the great team. What is the foundation of this team? What is their sort of vision and aptitude to just walk through walls and do everything that needs to be done to build a great business? I think business model is always important, but it's tricky. And I think as Tapjoy can tell you more about, and I think Rob has lived through this ecosystem where you're dependent on a very large partner who sometimes is unpredictable. It's a stay nimble. Yeah, I think it's more so than in almost anywhere else. So I think the mobile business models are still very, very early and not sustainable, frankly. So that's a risk that we take in every mobile deal. Any other questions?
One last question.
One question? Go ahead.
Any tips on education apps where you're trying to market to the parents when they're trying to engage the children?
Yeah, I'll take a first stab at it, and then you guys. Sorry, yeah. The question is, any tips on education apps, apps where you can engage the kids besides Angry Birds? Seems to work really well. So, so I think there's actually there was a bunch of entrepreneurs who are trying to do just that, which is that it's a hard problem because kids, kids are anybody who's we have a 2-year-old, so he's actually pretty good with the iPad. So that's the good news that kids are actually becoming very good at using these devices. It's a natural interface to use your fingers on an iPad, right? It's much better than using keyboards. So people are getting into that, and the challenge is how do you keep the kid engaged while giving the parent the influence over the actual content? Because as soon as that's sort of a deadly mix, right? Kids don't want to be doing things that their parents tell them to do. So that's the challenge. I can't tell you that I've seen a great example of that, but there is an incubator here in Palo Alto that you guys should all be familiar with. It's called Imagine K-12. Have you guys heard of it? Imagine K-12. Take a look at it. It's an incubator of a bunch of Google and Yahoo people who were pretty successful. Started this incubator. The idea is that they incubate 10 to 12 companies, startups, every year. And these startups are focused on exactly that, the K through 12 phase of learning, education. And most of the companies in the incubator are doing mobile apps. because of it just, it's fun. I mean, there's entertainment value, which you need when you're focusing on kids. And the key there is how do you get administrators and the teachers and the parents all on a single platform so that you have a holistic view of what the kid is doing in the school, at home, with if you have a sort of teach at home program, how does all that tie into it? So I don't have a good example of it, but I know that there are a lot of entrepreneurs focusing on it. And if you go to that incubator, you'll see some examples of it. You guys want to add anything?
Yeah, I would just say, I also believe education is one of the biggest opportunities for mobile, including the new form factor tablets and everything. It's also a very noble cause, right? So if you can get with companies that need that noble cause, they will be very helpful in funding some research and allowing you to get some tests and some data going. Personally, I believe the way to a parent's heart is to, convince them that their child will be better off with this than without it. And if you can have some data to back that up and say, hey, children learn faster using my methodology, versus X, Y, and Z, I think their ears will perk up. If you look at how much spend in this country is focused on, preschool and the disparity in spend from, public-funded preschools to private schools that are children who can't even speak yet, it's amazing. So I think if you, can get some data to help you prove and win the parents' hearts over, you'll be able to get far.
In terms of the a business model for the education apps, I think one thing that's extremely important is that you're very straightforward with anytime that you're trying to monetize those apps. Parents will get very upset if you do the traditional virtual goods model where you're just kind of trying to sell little microtransactions to the kids. I think that's really a poor model for that educational space. But there's no reason why you can't be straightforward with the parents and do things like level packs and chunks of content for the kids and let them make it a free app, let them play it, and then say hey, you've gone through this content, ask your parents to buy the next level. Just be very straightforward, very upfront with the kid who's going to be playing it. But as a businessman, you need to keep the lights on. So I think there is a model there, and the important thing is to be straightforward with them.
Last question before you guys end. Let me finish it off.
Okay, the real last question.
Yeah, the real last question. It's actually a comment, not a question. I worked with a client. He tried incentivized marketing on iPhone games. It didn't work, but then he switched to sweepstakes promotion, and the way he marketed it, that you can win probably $1 million once you download this app, and he actually did it. So he really got successful in promoting that ad. So just a comment on that.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you. Please join me in thanking the panel. As Shalini mentioned, look out for more great events. We will have another event in October, so look out for that. I hope the panelists can stay for a little bit longer, so you'll have a chance to come and talk to them for some time. And thank you again for being here.
Yes.